Hey there, and welcome to the Sudo Show, brought to you by the Destination Linux Network. Today, we will talk with author and developer Thomas Vitale. We discuss his new book, Cloud Native Spring in Action, and talk about the future of Spring in the cloud era. All that and more on this episode of the Sudo Show. Welcome to the Sudo Show, your home for all things enterprise open source. I'm Eric, the IT guy, but wait, what's going on? The Sudo Show, a week early? Why, yes, it is. We're making a slight adjustment to the release schedule in sight of the upcoming holiday season. Next week is Thanksgiving, and instead of promoting a new episode, we wanted to promote time away from technology to spend with loved ones. With that being said, it definitely wouldn't be the Sudo Show without my favorite co-host, Brandon Johnson. How you doing today, buddy?
Doing great, Eric. Getting ready for the holidays. Gonna smoke a turkey this year. Just trying to also finish out our fourth quarter, so we're trying to finish strong. How about yourself, Eric?
Well, I know I've been driving you nuts the past week with ideas for content, both for the show and for at the office. Well, that's kind of what happens when you take a full week off, and dude, did I need it. I'm excited to be back in the studio, and we really have an awesome show lined up for you all. But before we bring in our guest today, I have to say, this show wouldn't be what it is without the sponsorship of DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean offers the simplest, most developer-friendly cloud platform. You can get started on DigitalOcean for free with a $100 credit by going to do.co/DLN.
DigitalOcean provides a competitive edge for your business while having an easy-to-use interface. They provide one of the most reliable platforms with over 100,000 developer teams worldwide and offer 4 nines of uptime.
Think a service like this would come with a complex pricing scale? Not at all. Enjoy DigitalOcean's flat monthly fees so you'll always know what you are spending.
DigitalOcean offers world-class customer support with tech-savvy technicians and even around-the-clock support for premium subscribers. Couple that with DO's security-compliant infrastructure, and you have the perfect formula for hosting your blog, hobbyist site, or enterprise-scale applications.
DigitalOcean keeps getting better and better while still keeping the same easy-to-use UI, and who could beat their amazing library of APIs? That is why we are so excited to share their service with you. Just head on over to do.co/DLN to get your own $100 credit to try out all their awesome features. And thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Sudo Show. Joining us today is Thomas Vitale, author of the upcoming book, Cloud Native Spring in Action. Welcome to the show, Thomas.
Thanks, Eric, and hi, Brandon. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, we're really excited to sit down, well, virtually anyway, and chat with you today. This interview's been in the works for a few weeks now, so excited that it's finally here.
Yeah, me too.
So, Thomas, whenever people come on the show, we like to remind our audience that the industry is made up of people, of individuals, personalities, different backgrounds. So why don't we just start out with something simple? Who is Thomas?
Yes, so I am a senior software engineer at Systematic, a Danish company where I develop software in the healthcare domain. Besides working in the software engineering field and being really passionate about it, I really like music. I play the piano and I like traveling, even if it's not possible nowadays with this situation, but looking forward to be able to travel again soon. Yes, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, I have to derail us already. But what kind of music are you interested in?
So I listen to different musical genres and also played in different bands and orchestras, pop, rock, blues. I would say that rock music is my favorite, but I listen to different kinds of music. Yeah.
Now, we could take up the entire episode talking about music and genres because a few people may remember that back before I started working at Red Hat, I was actually working as a systems administrator, but on the weekends I was a lighting designer. So I've worked at rock concerts and country music, just different kinds of things. So we could completely get off topic, but but people came here to hear about you and your book, not about music. So how did you get into tech?
Yeah, I guess it was when I was a kid that my father bought my first computer. It was Windows 98 operating system. He really got me into computers and taught me all the basics back then. And since then, I started also learning on myself, like exploring different possibilities in the field. And when it was time to choose a career path, then I was really sure that it would have been something in tech, in particular software engineering.
Yeah. What was that something you just fell into, like fell into software engineering, or did or after getting into technology at a young age, was that kind of a dream to get into this?
Yeah, I think in high school, I really started like appreciating the fact that I could build something out of software and share with people, building something that was actually useful to someone else. I really liked that aspect of technology, and also the fact that it's always changing, it's always evolving. There's always something new to learn. I'm really curious about everything. So I think it's a great field for me to work in, because there's always something new to learn, to explore, to discover. I really like that.
So how did you get into the industry? I mean, you mentioned now working in the medical industry, but how did you get into IT to begin with?
Yeah, so at the university, I studied computer engineering, specializing in software. I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree. And then I got a job in the industry directly as a software engineer. And I started working on different technologies in the healthcare sector already. Like my first full-time job was already in this sector.
Okay, so you've been a lifelong techie.
Yes.
Let's get into the meat of this. Obviously, for your day job, you work on Spring, on Java development. What just for our listeners, some of our listeners are ops guys. They may be dealing with this technology, but they may not be overly familiar with it. So if you could just give us, quick view of what is the Spring framework, follow on, how does that relate to the Java ecosystem?
Yeah, of course. So Spring is started many years ago as a solution providing dependency injection, a framework for dependency injection and aspect-oriented programming. And back then was a big deal. The alternative was using enterprise Java beans in the Java EE ecosystem. Yeah, there were some issues with working with them. So Spring really brought something new in the market, and since then it evolved and grew into this full application framework that gives you all the tools to build different kinds of applications, whatever are your needs. So right now it's an entire ecosystem of different projects, different libraries.
You already brought up one piece I was going to bring up. What are some of the key differences between Spring and it's now called Jakarta, but people know it as Java EE?
So I think the main difference is that when we talk about Jakarta EE, like the new Java EE, so it's a set of specifications and APIs that go through a standardization process, while Spring is an application framework. So I think that when comparing the two, usually we mean like Jakarta EE implemented by a specific vendor, like if we talk about Wildfly or JBoss. So in the context of, at least traditionally, of an application server, I think a key point in the comparison that happened a few years ago is when Spring Boot was introduced, because the standard way of working with Java applications for the web was to package them as WAR artifacts or maybe EAR artifacts and then deploy them into an application server. And then Spring Boot suddenly revolutionized the Java ecosystem by having this framework containing already a web server, an embedded web server. And then suddenly you could just run that application containing all the dependencies. And I think it was a game changer and brought us to where we are today, also with a different frameworks that have been born like recently in the Java ecosystem.
So that's where I've been wondering the history of that. So where did fat jars come from? And you just answered the question. It came from thanks to some of the work done with Spring. That's really good to know and understand. I didn't know that, so I appreciate that. Are you familiar with any of the newer framework, like other Java frameworks like Quarkus, which is more of like just an evolution on top of probably more of an evolution of the application server than anything else. But are you familiar with that? Or how Spring relates to Quarkus? Because that's been a top of my mind lately is that framework.
Yeah, so it's a bit hard to compare, I think, Spring and Quarkus, because usually like a comparison is done based on performance or memory usage. But I think it's we should consider the context. Like Quarkus was born already as a Kubernetes native framework, like in recent years. Yeah, it started like with specific requirements that now are fulfilled in a great way. I mean, it's super fast, especially when you run it in native mode, and it's incredible. And Spring, of course, has a lot of history because it's been out there for years, but still is it's keeping up. And I think that in the last couple of years, they both, like both Spring and Quarkus, evolved a lot and influenced each other. Also, like to make themselves better and to keep up with the latest requirements coming from all the experience in building and deploying cloud native applications and functions.
A lot of our audience is either just getting started or at a turning point in their career. So I've got kind of a two-part question for you. The first part is, what drew you to Spring? What got you really fired up? I mean, obviously you're passionate about Spring. You're writing a book. So what brought you personally towards Spring? Was it just career, or was there something specific about the community? Dig into that a little bit.
So when I got started with Spring, it was by accident, I would say. I was working with Java EE and application servers, and I bumped into Spring, so I decided to give it a try. The plain Spring framework, so I started like implementing projects that previously I implemented with Java EE in Spring, and then I found Spring Boot, and that it was a game changer for me. Like from a productivity point of view, from a developer experience point of view, was great. And I think still today, what keeps me like working with Spring and also participating in the community and contributing whenever I can to the Spring project is the whole developer experience. I can find solutions to the problems that I have. It's a really great documentation, good community. I'm productive with it, and I can solve real problems, like real world problems, easily.
I've read the chapters that are available. It talks a lot about Kubernetes, which is great. I think that's the future. That being said, cloud native doesn't mean containerized. Can you describe your thinking on applying cloud native development outside of Kubernetes or other container platforms?
I really like this question because, I don't like defining cloud native with technologies or specific implementation details. And I don't think we should define it yet by Kubernetes or even containers. And I always like to mention a blog post published by Paul Fremantle on his blog back in 2010 titled Cloud Native. And in 2010, there was no Docker yet, no Kubernetes, no talking about microservices. There was no Spring Boot, no Quarkus. And yet we were talking about cloud native back then with specific criteria, like Paul Fremantle talked about how to build applications that work well in a cloud environments. That still stands today. It's about leveraging the elasticity of the cloud environment, so scaling in a dynamic way and have self-service deployed infrastructures, paying only for what you use. All these principles that are still valid today, but they have nothing to do with using containers. And an example also, or a proof when I'm challenged and about not identifying cloud native with containers is, it's talking about functions. When I develop a function, I'm not considering a container, a Docker container. It's something else. I can still work on cloud native applications on a cloud native platform just by producing jar files. That's still cloud native. Platforms like Heroku or Cloud Foundry, or even on serverless platforms like AWS Lambda or Google Functions, I can upload a jar file, and that's my function. It's in the cloud. It's cloud native because it takes advantage of the cloud computing model, but it's not a container.
That's perfect. That's like you drop the mic and go. I thought that was good. Like as much as I love Kubernetes, I do think it is the future of data center and cloud. But there's so much legacy out there, and I think that defining cloud native as being, it's silly to keep tying it to containers. Even though for a couple of years ago it wasn't, but now it's synonymous. And I personally am like, no, it could be, cloud native can be anything. So I appreciate that perspective. Let's get into the book. That's one of the big reasons why we're here. We talked about everything around it, what's in it a bit, but let's talk about it. So what led you to writing this book? Maybe together with this, what are you hoping the readers will get out of it?
I've always liked to have conversations with people around technology and sharing ideas, sharing different aspects of technologies. I studied writing a blog, even if I don't seem to write a lot because I keep drafting all these blog posts and then I want them to be perfect and I never publish them. That's not nice. I'm trying to change that, but I really like knowledge sharing, giving back to the community by bringing in what I can. And writing this book is about that for me. I'd like the reader to be able to navigate the cloud native landscape, in particular in the Spring and container ecosystem in this case. Since we're talking about a very wide landscape, I try to focus on a specific set of technologies and ways to build cloud native applications. And I'd like them to learn how to build one, leveraging all the nice features provided by the Spring framework, and ultimately deploying a cloud native system made up of different applications on a Kubernetes based platform. And about the topic, of course, I'm really passionate about Spring. I work with it every day. I'm into cloud native technology, so it felt natural for me to combine these two passions and writing a book about it.
Yeah, there are 4 chapters out as of this recording, and chapter 5 should be out any day now if it's not out already. What should we expect in the coming chapters for those that are getting their hands on it as the chapters are coming out?
Throughout the whole book, the reader will develop a project that will be made up of different applications so that in each chapter, all the new techniques and tools are applied to this project that by the end of the book will be deployed on a Kubernetes cluster in a public cloud. And this project will be useful to teach and to practice different aspects of building cloud native applications. So we will interact with different data sources and applications also provided by the cloud platform itself. And it will show and demonstrate different techniques for building a distributed systems, how to define interactions between the different components, and all of this while step by step while learning new aspects of building cloud native applications with Spring.
One of the things I really enjoyed, and I've admitted on the show multiple times that I am not a developer, never have been, never even pretended to be one. So, one of the things I really enjoy about your book is you talk a little bit about theory, about methodology, and then the second half of the chapter is around code exercises. What's really great is you don't have to go and spin up a full server and install all these libraries. Instead, you've provided the reader with a series of Docker containers that they can run on their laptop, on their desktop. So I felt like that was really, really helpful so that even someone like me who's just vaguely familiar with the different Java architectures can get in, get their hands dirty, and play with some of these different exercises.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that.
So we've kind of hinted at this a little bit, but there's only a few chapters out of your book, and there's more coming. So how is that working? Is that something through the publisher?
Yes, so I really like this approach that Manning has of releasing books like in early access mode, and it feels really natural to me as a developer, like used to work in iterations, like in an agile way. So building something small, release it, and then get feedback. And then iterate over it and improve it and expand it. From that point of view, it feels natural to me to release chapters like periodically and get feedback. There's a forum on the Manning website where readers can provide me with maybe some inputs or feedback if there's any mistake or something that they would like. I covered in the book, and it's really great that because I don't have to wait a year to actually see the result, but I can write a better book because I get input from the readers, so I can help them in a better way. So provide something that is more useful and will produce more good effects on their job.
It's almost like Manning brought DevOps to book publishing, right?
Yeah, that's another word like cloud native that would start a whole new conversation.
well, well, before we start planning the next follow-up interview,
Yeah.
when can folks expect the final book to be released?
Yes, the final release date is planned for next year, early summer, like June 2021, for the printed version of the book.
Perfect. And I love how you included planned in your description of the release date.
Yeah, it's like when building software, right? There's always some unexpected event.
Before we dive into Thomas's big book announcement, we have to tell you all about one of our favorite open source projects.
That's right, it's Bitwarden, the easiest, safest way for individuals, teams, and business organizations to store, share, and sync sensitive data.
Wait. You know what we haven't done yet? We haven't told our listeners what they actually get for Bitwarden's low price. We've talked about use cases, open source, and security, but never the features. Give the people what they want, Brandon. Give them their features.
Great point, Eric. For just $10 a year, you get all the free-to-use features, plus 1 gig of encrypted file storage, 2-step login with YubiKey, Vault Health reports, time-based one-time password authenticators, and priority customer support.
All that benefit for just $10 a year. That is a heck of a deal. So head on over to bitwarden.com/DLN to get your amazing password manager.
And thank you to Bitwarden for being a sponsor of the Sudo Show and the entire Destination Linux network.
So as I teased just a moment ago, it sounded like you brought a little gift for some of our audience. You want to share?
Of course, I brought 5 codes to get my ebook for free.
That's awesome. So to be registered to win, just head on over to Twitter or your favorite social media platform and either retweet the announcement of this episode or post about it and tag Sudo Show Podcast. Between now and the release of our next episode, 5 randomly selected winners will receive a download code good for a copy of Cloud Native Spring in action. So, Thomas, now that our listeners have gotten a chance to know you a little bit today and have heard a little bit about your book, what's one tip you would want technologists to know? People getting started or people that are interested in Java development, what's one little tidbit that you could share?
I would say be curious and be open to try different technologies, and don't start from the technologies, but start from the problems that you're trying to solve, and from there pick the right tool and the right solution.
That's amazing advice, and I think Thomas earns 2 mic drops today, just because I mean that's perfect. It's not the technology; it's find a problem and then find a solution. So, Thomas, thank you so much for coming on the show, for talking development and producing your amazing book. We really appreciate your time and hope to have you again on the show here come June.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, your feedback is welcome. Head on over to sudo.show/discuss. Once again, don't forget to share this episode on social media to get a chance to receive a free copy of Thomas Vitale's book, Cloud Native Spring in Action. If you would like more of Brandon and I, you can find it over on our website, sudo.show, and on social media at Sudo Show Podcast. You can catch more awesome content over at our network partners, destinationlinux.network. Brandon, anywhere else you'd like to send folks?
You can follow me on Twitter at dbrandonjohnson or my website at open-tech.net.
And you can follow me at ITGuyEric or on itguyeric.com. Remember, the Sudo Show is your place for all things enterprise open source. Until next time.